The floor is open. Who wants to start us off? Yes, sir. And if everybody could go ahead and just say your name as you make your comment or question.
Thank you. My name is Greg Matz. I'm with Brilliant Clinic. It's a local hospital company. I really want to say thank you. The COVID pandemic has really impacted hospitals in every industry, but it's impacted us with labor, with supplies, as everybody knows. And the CARES Act that you all passed was literally, and I do mean literally, a lifesaver. So just thank you for your support of the American hospital industry and Brilliant Clinic. And if you want to opine, feel free, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I do think, you know, the interesting thing with COVID, and none of us saw it coming, you know, and clearly, and the thing that was, for all the dysfunction in Washington, I actually do think the Congress met the occasion. And you know, and I didn't agree with President Trump on a lot of things, but President Trump did the right thing as well. And we passed, there was like 4 different bills. It was close to $5 trillion, whether it was the CARES money, whether it was the increased unemployment, whether it was the PPP money, whether it was the shuttered venue money, I mean, for theaters like this. Was some of it excessive? Probably. We probably overshot the mark on some of this, but if we hadn't done it, it would have been the cost of life, the cost to our economy. You know, the downside of this now is a lot of that over the last couple of years has helped drive inflation because we put so much money into the economy. And you know, again, I wish I had the magic wand to turn it off. I do say, and I know many folks here are current or former elected officials. I would say the resources that have come recently, you know, we did about $4 billion to the Commonwealth, $3 billion to local government, and almost $3 billion to local school divisions. I implore you, as you make decisions on what to do with those funds, and you know, I think it's going to be a long, long time before Uncle Sam ever sends this much money down the path again without as much restrictions. I get a little frustrated at times that some of our friends in Richmond these days, you know, want to use some of this money for short-term political highs, like, you know, let me send you a check or something like this, when you know, you're never going to have this much unencumbered money. So making the long-term structural improvements and investments is what I would hope and plead for everybody to do. And I want to, one other quick comment I want to make on this. Anybody that's served in public office or in any kind of community office the last couple of years with COVID, God bless you, thank you, it's been hard. But I think there ought to be a particular place in heaven providing for anyone who's been a school board member over the last few years. Because I don't care what your position was, keep your school open, close it, whatever, you got grief. And I just implore everyone, again, I don't care what your politics is, but you know, the level of abuse that people are getting that serve on school boards these days is just awful. And again, I don't care, you know, people serve on school boards out of passion, out of caring, out of commitment to kids in the community. And I just fear, I see it all over. I see it particularly up in where I live in Northern Virginia. You know, people just aren't going to do it anymore if they get the level of abuse and grief that too often they receive. So sorry about the little editorial comment, but thanks for all the good work that Brilliant does. Yes, please.
My name is Susan Goings. I am on the Historic Masonic Foundation board here. And as you know, that Greg mentioned, COVID has affected the hospitals. It's also affected us here. And as you've seen when you came in, we consider this the heart of the community, this theater that we have, and we're very proud of it. But I want to ask what things are being done to continue to see that we can have funding that all of the theaters, you know, in the whole state of Virginia so desperately need, so that we can continue and to keep our doors open and to provide the performances that we know we need.
Great question, and there was a lot of things we did during COVID. The truth is, we didn't put enough money out on what was called the shuttered venues. We didn't put enough money out on the restaurant revitalization fund. A lot of restaurants came forward, and it was like, it was purely the luck of the draw who got the money, because it was like first ins, and we have tried to come back and say, because we're not fully out of the woods on restaurants, and particularly on venues, and quite honestly, I don't think you're going to see, you know, additional extraordinary funding the way we did. They're just not the votes. We tried to make one last push a couple months ago to see if we could do one more slug of resources, particularly these kind of venues, because it's still tough to get people back in theaters. It didn't happen. This is a prime example, though, where, and you know, this sounds like I'm passing the buck, and a little bit I am, where the Commonwealth of Virginia is sitting on a lot of resources. I remember when I was governor, we fought like Dickens just to try to get $1 per person per year for the arts in Virginia. And you know, we finally got it up to about $8 million, $9 million a year for the arts. I'm not sure how much of that is still being funded, but there is no reason why there should not be a state initiative at this point, particularly to help. You know, I think about the theater here. I think about you know, down in Marion and far southwest, the theater there really has brought that town back in a way that, and you see it all across. I see it in Galax. You know, like, there are so many places around Virginia where we revitalize these old theaters. You know, I'd be happy to try to help push the legislature as well, but in terms of federal dollars, there are normal kind of, you know, National Endowment for the Arts and some of this, and, you know, I could work with the community on a grant application, but there's not going to be a big slug of dough coming the way there was during COVID. I do think the best route would be, you know, going after some of that, some of those state funds that are excess. Yes, ma'am.
It's wonderful to see you again, sir. I'm grateful to see that our president has gone to Saudi Arabia and they are talking, which is a good thing. And hopefully they do want some product from us. They're wanting to up their technology, which I know that you come full force with that. And I hope that you could help President President Biden get prepared for that. It would be great. Maybe they will actually give some gas and help the folks back that here in this U.S. that is living and needs the gas to go to doctors or work or whatever the case may be. So I know you have a lot of expertise, and I know Mr. Biden would love to have your input on that.
Thank you so much. Listen, I you know, as chairman of the Intelligence Committee, I've seen a lot of things. This government in Saudi Arabia, you know, these are not the best folks. But the truth is, you know, the President of the United States has got a responsibility, and I think it was appropriate for him to go to Saudi Arabia. And part of this job is, you don't always get to pick who you have to deal with, but you got to deal with everybody if you're President of the United States. And I think, you know, my hope and expectation will be is that out of this visit, you will see Saudi Arabia increase its oil production. I mean, we need additional production coming out of the Middle East, because this is, I mean, the thing, I met with some of the folks from the forestry industry yesterday, and you know, we had part of a hard conversation because the loggers spend a lot of time trying to get wood product to market, and huge costs, and I made the point that a lot of this is being driven, a lot of these costs are being driven by the war in Ukraine. You know, when we tried to cut off the supply of Russian oil and gas, you know, to have them pay a penalty for invading Ukraine. And I said, I think we cannot let the pressure off on Russia. I do not think we can allow Russia to be successful in their invasion of Ukraine. You know, because in many ways, there's many problems that we got in this country, and I think, gosh, can our system still work or not work? I mean, encourage the people in Ukraine to basically say, we will give up our lives to try to have a little bit of what you have in America and take for granted every day. And one of these young men said, you know, I understand that, but my family needs cheaper gas. So it is a, you know, that's one of the reasons why I think we need to do more domestically. You know, I'm all for moving toward greener energy as soon as possible, but we can't flick a switch. There's going to have to be a transition period, and we need to get folks like some of these folks in the Middle East to increase production. Because, you know, candidly, they want a lot of our arms. They need to increase that production.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
My name is Dora Godfrey. I live in Covington. First, I want to thank you for your service and your representation. This is more a comment than it's something that, I don't know, maybe you could do something about or not. But the Virginia Employment Commission, I mean, they are just absolutely ridiculous, because what they're doing is the CARES Act money and the state money that went along with it for unemployment, they're wanting all of it back now. So my thing about them is, why do you have appeals examiners who obviously not following their own policy and giving the money, according to them, knowing that you're not qualified for it, then they want it back. I mean, I'm in the appeal process myself, and all the questions that I have asked them, they have not answered. You know why? So that's just more or less a comment. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that they would want that money back. I don't understand why they want the federal money back. Anyway, so anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, let me say this. I wish this was the first time I'd heard this complaint. And, you know, I like the former governor I worked with, but I just, you know, I couldn't believe how bad it was. When I was governor, John mentioned those things, I was proud of the fact we got named the best managed state because, you know, listen, nobody likes paying taxes, but if you pay taxes, you expect your government to work. And what happened at VEC, you know, I'll give them a little bit of a break when COVID first hit, but the fact that it was 2 years later and they still couldn't get people to respond on a timely basis, and what has bothered me is that, listen, we put out a lot of money, and frankly, again, in retrospect, the fact that we increased unemployment by $400 a week was probably too much. But it was the middle of a crisis. The house was burning down. You needed to do whatever you could. And we pushed out a lot of money. And clearly there were going to be mistakes made. I think, and with VEC, the inability to get any kind of answers, the inability to get your claims filed, it was, I would have fired a heck of a lot more people. You know, the way I was a business guy first. I mean, you gotta operate in a smoother basis. And I've heard this a number of times. I've worked pretty well with the new governor. We've been working on the flood out in Buchanan County. Let me see if there's anything else I can do on this subject. Because the thing is, just as there were some challenges with VEC on some of the individual money that went out, you know, there was also, I think we're going to find out, a lot of money that went out on the PPP program for small businesses that frankly had some abuse too. But it bothers me a little bit if we are going to kind of turn a blind eye to the money that went out for PPP for small businesses and spend all our time going after individuals that may not have the resources to fight back. And it doesn't sit right with me. But I appreciate the comment, and I apologize. As a former governor, I apologize that you're having to go through this much junk. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Maddie Wade. I'm a student at Virginia Tech, and I'm here with my mom for Bath County. I would like to know what you're doing to defend women's reproductive rights.
Great question. You know, I strongly believe that women's healthcare choices ought to be made by women and their doctors, and in consultation with you know, the pastor or the preacher or whomever. I know people feel very strongly about when life begins, and I think, you know, people can have a different opinion than I have on this issue, but I don't think the court ought to be telling, you know, women, you know, and throwing out something like Roe v. Wade after 50 years. I mean, my daughter, who's 32, and I'm going to finally be a grandfather. I'm very happy about that. She's 17 weeks pregnant, but first week or two, we thought she got a misdiagnosis. We thought it was an ectopic pregnancy. The idea that she could have been in harm's way because of the Supreme Court. Or this god-awful story of this child being raped in Ohio and having to go to Indiana to get health care. I don't get that. I mean, I've supported an effort to try to codify Roe v. Wade. I've supported an effort to try to say a state cannot prevent a person from traveling to another state to get health care services. I mean, to me, it's crazy what's going on in Texas, the idea that you're supposed to rat out your neighbor. I don't know where we're headed. I would say this, the way the things stand right now, with this Supreme Court decision, until we hire other people that would hopefully appoint different kinds of judges, the front line on this battle is going to be next year in Virginia. And who you send to Richmond will determine whether you still have the same kind of healthcare choices that we have available right now, or whether Virginia would have laws that would look like Texas or Georgia or elsewhere. I'm not here as a Democrat or Republican. I'm just here to try to respond to your question. But I think it's going to be really up to you and the people of Virginia whether those rights are protected. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Good morning. My name is Jim Bay. I'm just a citizen here in Clifton Forge. Related to this question, I've had this on my mind for years, especially with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. In this hyper-partisan era, almost everyone I talk to agrees on adoption as an alternative to abortion. And whether you're pro-choice, pro-life, doesn't matter. Adoption is a viable issue. So my question to you is, would you support a bill providing federal funding for people wishing to adopt a child in this country?
The short answer is yes. I think we ought to support as many adoption options as possible. But I don't think, where we might agree to disagree, I want abortion in this country to be safe, legal, and rare. And so, yes, I think we should provide, support for adoption. But I don't think that means that we should dictate to a young woman, or not so young woman, that if they choose something other, particularly in the early stages, I think there is a question around viability, and there are medical and ethical and other debates. But particularly early on, in those first trimester, I think that health care decision ought to be left with the woman and her doctor.
Can I clarify?
Yes.
I'm pro-choice. I don't want you to miss.
No. Listen, I'm not trying to listen. I feel one of the things, I'm pro-choice too, but I totally respect someone who has a different view from me on this. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I just wish we could ratchet down the volume a little bit on this, but I do absolutely support, assistance for folks who would care of a doctor. I say and that's what happened in my family in terms of my sister. So yes, sir.
We appreciate you visiting with us today, Mr. Warner, Senator Warner. My name is Rusty Hammond. I'm a retired VP with Westvaco and currently serving on the Alleghany Foundation as a board member there. Kind of a twofold thing, a little bit of an ask. You mentioned communication. Self-service in the area is very poor. It's actually gotten worse, in my opinion, over the years.
Coming down to 20, it felt like it was worse today than it's been.
Yeah, and it has. With working at the mill, we relied on self-service to be able to communicate with the mill if we were not inside the mill. That worked well for years, and it's gotten worse with the carrier that I use. So we need help there for sure. Likewise, with the internet, great job with the broadband. We do still have some holes in the area. Starlink is an option there, and I'm participating in that currently. But my understanding is this network is working to interfere with some of the band frequencies that would interrupt Starlink service. That's a concern that so FCC is, in my opinion, not pulling the weight and don't understand the system. So communication is one area that I wanted to just heighten the awareness of. The other is for this area in general. Being a member of the Alleghany Foundation, when we look at funding, whether it's state or federal, this region seems to be in a little bit of a donut hole. And this is a state problem maybe, but you look at southwestern Virginia, there are coal monies to those folks, there are tobacco monies to folks as well, but particularly in Alleghany, Bath, Highland, Craig, I think it's assumed that we are associated with the Roanoke Valley, Shenandoah Valley. But we're often forgotten because we don't have coal money, we don't have tobacco money, and any help that you can give us to bring monies here would be appreciated, because I think when monies are distributed, people assume that we're getting our share, and I don't think we are.
Well, thank you for covering those comments. And you know, and the truth is, you are kind of the hole in the donut. I mean, if you just look at the map, the Alleghany Highlands kind of sticks off here, and you're right. You're kind of, you're not the Shenandoah Valley, you're not Charlottesville, you're not really the Roanoke Valley, you're not Southwest, and you know, I remember years back trying to bring one of the big water companies to do a big, big, huge facility here. We got really, really close. It was Avion or one of them. And I will take that back and see what else I can do. One of the things I need to do, though, is work with your local board of supervisors. And I know we're going to make a presentation in a few minutes for the 200th anniversary of Alleghany County. We're going to flag from the Capitol. Not as good as a check. I should have probably brought a check. But I think your point is well made. And I look at this theater, and I know how many, for 20 plus years, the challenges Clifton Forge has gone through. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are making hard choices. The fact that, that, for example, with Covington, you're combining your schools with the county schools. That's got to be hard. But I think it's the kind of choices you have to make. On the cell phone stuff, I do think I can be helpful. I think pushing the FCC, I do also think, one of the things I commend you on the broadband piece, but there's going to be so much additional broadband money coming. I almost worry that a county like yours, or a county that's gone ahead and been forward-leading, kind of got the job done, I know you're going to be back on me 2 years from now when there's more money sitting out there and you're going, well, darn it, we spent all our money early. We should not get penalized on that. And I don't have a fully good answer other than the fact that you got my commitment that if there are still holes, we'll get you some more of this Virginia VTIA, I think it's called, money. But we'll try to get that done. I want to make sure I get a couple more questions. And yes, ma'am, back here and then here.
Good morning. Thank you for being here, Senator Warner. Kim Hunter-Lewis. My question is, what are you doing and what did you actually do to help the black farmers? It's documented, the discrimination they have faced through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The president of the National Black Farmers is out of Virginia. John Boyd.
Very well.
Yes.
20 years.
Yes. I don't know how well you worked with him when you were governor, but he recently stated that President Biden had promised to meet with him during the campaigning phase. And since he has been president, he has not been able to secure a meeting with him. What can you do to help secure a meeting and also to get the funds to the black farmers who have been the backbone of this country when it wasn't by choice? And money is, in essence, divvied out, coughed up very easily for other needs, other countries, but the black farmers cannot get the money they need.
And I'll reach out to John. I'm surprised that he's not called me, because I see John on a fairly regular basis, and you know, I imagine he will get his meeting with President Biden, because John Boyd's as persistent a fellow as I've ever met. But you know, part of the settlement, there was a recent settlement in, we keep putting all these different names on these bills, and I'm getting old enough now I can't remember the names of all the bills, but there was one that included a major settlement, close to $4 billion for the black farmers out of the agriculture department. Let me see if I can get you something specific on that. All right, so I will come back to you specifically. Yes, ma'am. And I'll be quicker on my
I'll try to be quick.
No. You go ahead.
Kristen McConnell, I'm a Gulf War vet and I'm a veterans law attorney here in Clifton Forge. And I know this isn't veterans is no affairs is what you're saying, but to communicate what's going on the ground with VA, really appreciate the PACT Act. It's going to be great. Hope it lands on the president's desk soon for a signature. But the problem is what Congress passes and the media covers is really positive with all of these presumptive conditions for Gulf War veterans, for Agent Orange. The problem is with VA is they don't implement what Congress passes. And there's a lot of money being spent that doesn't need to be spent by VA because they're not implementing what Congress is passing. So for presumptive conditions specifically, if a veteran goes to Iraq and is exposed to burn pits and toxic exposure there, they should only have to prove that they were there and that they have a current condition. The VA wastes time and money by making the veteran go to compensation and pension exams, go to various different examiners and x-rays and tests and stuff where they only have to prove those two things. So we're wasting money paying contractors for the VA to do these exams. And then veterans' time, and we're being, especially in this area, we have to run to Lynchburg and Forest and Beckley and Raleigh, North Carolina to get exams. And then they're spending money reimbursing veterans for mileage for that too. There's a lot of money, I guess my point is, there's a lot of money being wasted and time being wasted for veterans who need the help. So while Congress is passing these really great bills and these laws, VA's not implementing it. And I know that's executive and all that kind of stuff.
No, listen, I feel like the bane of my existence has been the VA hospital in Hampton, which, you know, I'm down there every few months trying to get folks, you know, not have to wait so long on to get their appointments. I generally think most veterans feel once they get into the VA, when you get through the bureaucracy, you get pretty good care. But boy, you make it so darn hard to get in on something that you've earned. So, you know, if you will get to Ashley or to Isaac, this is the kind of thing where, you know, you can try to do it on a macro basis, but frankly, what we have are caseworkers that try to make sure we can just work on your individual case. Yes, sir?
Dovetailing her, I served in the Army, was in Iraq for 2 years. I have a couple concerns with how the Army was run back then and how it's being run now. We are kicking soldiers out who are fully qualified to do their job, fully qualified physically, based off of, you know, height, weight, tape tests, all that kind of stuff, that the Army and all the other branches admit are based off of science. And I know that they just recently said they were going to update the standards, but even the standards they're updating to, they admit that 1 out of every 20 soldiers will be harmed by the new standards before they even come out. And we're in a situation where we're paying tens of thousands of dollars to bring in every new recruit, and we're kicking people who want to serve out just because some of them, they go to the gym too much. And honestly, as a former infantryman, if the guy next to me is too strong, that's a pretty good thing.
You're kicking people out if they go to the gym too much.
When I was in, I was counseled to not go to the gym because I had too much muscle mass. Now, nowadays, it's a little hard to believe, but back then,
I wasn't going to say a word.
Back then, you know, I don't know how it all went from my chest to my stomach. I'm not sure what happened there, but then additionally, we have soldiers who have to get out, infantrymen. They mess up their knee from the, you know, when I was in my full battle rattle with all my weapons, I was almost 400 pounds of gear, all in my body. That messes up your knee. They get out, they use the GI Bill, they get an education in a job that the Army or the military needs, but because they have a VA rating, they're told, well, either you have to renounce your VA rating or you can't serve. Even though they would be perfectly capable of sitting at a desk doing the job, they're being told they can't.
And this is one that I thought I'd heard, having done this stuff for 25 years, virtually everything. I've not heard of this one before. So can I let me see if I can get some specific information from you, and then we'd be, and go ahead.
Oh, and then just one other thing. She's great, but she shouldn't have a job because the VA should be the ones who are advocating for the veterans. We shouldn't have to have a lawyer go out there to tell you all the tricks to get the VA to do their job. It should be veterans should be walking in and the VA should be saying, how can we help?
Well, the one thing, on that, I don't know completely how to fix it. I know, like, one of the things we ended up doing back when I was governor, because we set up a whole operation inside Virginia. We got a second highest number of veterans in the whole country here in Virginia. We love our service people, but we had to set up and spend state money to try to help veterans navigate the system. And as the young lady just mentioned, we do keep passing additional legislation. This is one area, unlike theaters, this is one area where it's not lack of money. There is complete bipartisan agreement that we ought to fund our veterans, but the efficiency of that funding really, I will take that into consideration. I know they're giving me the hook, but I want to make sure I get one or two more quick questions, comments, suggestions.
Can you talk some sense into your fellow senator next door? Sorry.
He's actually a good friend. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know what January the 6th, 2021 was like for you personally.
It was god-awful.
Were you scared?
I don't think I was scared as much as I was like in complete disbelief. As I mentioned, I'm chairman of the Intelligence Committee. And I called the head of the FBI a couple days beforehand and said, this feels a little funky. And he didn't call me back, his number two called me back and said, well, I think we got this stuff handled. We got this stuff handled. And I don't think they were, I still don't know. I called him that morning and said, are you sure? And he said, well, no, I think we got this handled. And I didn't go over to the House, I was going over to the Senate floor. And going over them all the way. And you see there's protesters all the time at the Capitol. But I said to my communication, this seems a little weird. I've never seen people, this many getting so close. And then I went up to the, we were on the floor of the Senate, and all of a sudden you hear, glass breaking. And I felt for those poor Capitol Police. They didn't know what was going on either. And the fact that they took us over to another room and we were safe, and it was hard because I got so angry seeing these people desecrate our Capitol. And I thought about some of the people who I work with in the Senate who were trying to, frankly, help those people. And it was really hard. Now, one thing again, one of my bipartisan gangs, we're going to be announcing on Monday or Tuesday some legislation that will at least fix what's called the Electoral Count Act, that will make it absolutely clear that the role of the vice president after an election and people have had their votes fairly counted is to simply be a ministerial, that a vice president cannot throw out an election. It's not going to fix everything, but at least it will be some signal that a group of rational people from both parties are going to try to put country. Because, quite honestly, the crazies on either end scared the chickens out of me. And if there wasn't a camera on, I might use worse language. So, why don't we have somebody else? Yes, sir. And I know this will be the last one because they've been giving me the hook for 15 minutes.
I want to thank you for your service, and I want to say that as a veteran, I go to the VA, and I couldn't get better service at his hospital or any other hospital. But the contractors that the Veterans Administration or the Congress has hired is making it so hard to get our benefits. They cut my pension $2,800 because they said I went from 100% to 30%.
On disability?
On disability. But my 30% is less than 10% of what my original pension was. But it's the contractors that the VA or the government has hired to administer, to check on the VA. Let the VA run the VA. Don't have a bunch of contractors calling me up and saying, how are you today? And I said, well, I'm doing all right. They said, good, we're cutting your pension. And that's what happened to me.
That's wrong.
Hey, you don't have to argue with me.
No, this is where this is just a more generalized comment. You know, and it goes back to the young lady's comments over here on the VEC. You know, one of the things I think people who have my kind of jobs ought to spend more time, and one of the things that I'm proud of is, you know, I ran a business before I became governor. And too many people in politics, got nothing wrong with lawyers, but you know, they've never run anything. And it's easy to talk about how you spend money, but how you execute and how you actually run your operation is really how citizens view the government. Again, nobody likes paying taxes, but I think if you feel like you're getting fair service for your dollar, it becomes a little more bearable. So I'd love to look you in the eye and say, by the time I see you next, I'm going to get rid of all those contractors. I'm not sure, but I will take back on the VA from the Army situation, the VA circumstance, and as well on VEC. And thank you for your service on the Alleghany Foundation. I do think I can be helpful on the question around the cell phone coverage. Yeah, but I got to get that information. We're going to do now.
Hey, Senator, how you doing? I'm Stephanie Clark, who met several times.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make a comment and a statement. I just wanted to thank you for your passion and your care. When we see racial profiling happening all over the world, I mean, we're blessed here in our community, Covington, Clifton Forge, Alleghany County. We have a relationship with the sheriff, the state police, the police department. We've been blessed in that, and I'm grateful for that. But you know, I was just wondering, on the scale of your conversation with the other senators and such, how in the world do we work on having racial profiling cease? I know it doesn't start with where you are, but hopefully a conversation can be thought about, because you know, our young black men are being shot just, I mean, at a number that we can't even put on paper. I know there are young white men being shot also that are at a lower class that don't live in the same places that other people do. And I thank you and Senator Kane for always coming on the scene, discussing it, but I hope somewhere in our future, somewhere in our time, and I don't know when that'll be, maybe it'll be when Jesus returns, that we'll all see each other as human beings.
I've been doing this long enough to know after that to simply say thank you, and it is great to be here. And are we going to do because you know, the one thing, well, I didn't bring a check, I did bring a flag, so are we doing like are we doing a photo op now? Isaac?
Yeah, we have. Let's give the senator a round of applause.
We got to bring up the folks from the county board. Is that right? Somebody tell me what we're doing here.
Well, we actually have two presentations. Okay. One I didn't know about, so we're going on the fly. So why don't we do the county presentation?
Yeah, this is the county presentation. This is a flag that flew over the Capitol. That is commemorating the 200th birthday of Alleghany County, which I believe is going to be celebrated September 17th. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct.
So, I may not know how to do everything, but I know how to do photo ops after this many years in this business.
Thank you, sir. As a show of appreciation, the Chamber of Commerce will be making a contribution to the Historic Masonic Theatre in your name.
Oh,
so what we'd like to do is have Justin come up, and Gail Hillard, who's the president of the board, please come up. And
not as good as a federal check, but at least it's money for the theater.
That's right. Thank you. And I guess the last comment is, I think Kristen will have a job for a while, right? Because Robert tried to eliminate that job. So really, again, thank you for all your support for the Highlands and for the Commonwealth. And thanks everybody for coming this morning.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe.